Hello and welcome to this video about my new fantasy map artwork called The Reach. My name is Michael Klarfeld, I'm an artist from Dresden, Germany, and in this video I'm going to take you on a journey through a region of George R.R. Martin's Westeros, where chivalry was born and rivers of milk and honey flow, or so the legend goes. I spent about a year drawing a map of the Reach, an area controlled by the Tyrell family of Highgarden. This map is full of details showing the Tyrell family tree, Garth Greenhand and his children, who were legendary figures from the past, a view of Highgarden Castle, and, of course, the geography and houses of the Reach. There are a few short stories by George R. Martin that take place in the Reach, especially one called The Sorin Sword. The area of that story is included in the map. In this video I'll try to cover all the little details and Easter eggs that you can find on the artwork. And I'll start right off with the title. Hidden between the letters that make up The Reach, you can see some of the legendary figures of the Age of Heroes of Westeros. There's Servant of the Mirror Shield, who slew the dragon Urrax by approaching the beast behind his polished shield, so the dragon only saw its own reflection, then spearing Urrax through the eye. There's the Knight Without Armor, obviously depicted without any armor except whatever weapon he is carrying between his legs. Another dragon slayer called Davos the Dragon Slayer can be seen here, so dragons seem to be quite available for slaying in the Reach. The letter R alludes to the Field of Fire and the fall of the last Gardener King. Brandon of the Bloody Blade is slaying a child of the forest here, an action he was so proficient at that it gave him his cruel nickname. There's Roland of the Horn, probably an inhabitant of Horn Hill or just a horny guy with a beard. The sea covers Rowan Goldtree, whom we'll see later again, and finally we have King Garth VII, called Golden Hands, the greatest of all Gardener Kings, whose reign was called the Golden Reign. The Gardeners were replaced by the Tyrells. Currently Mace Tyrell is the head of the house. The members of the family tree of the Tyrells are modeled after actual people from the Song of Ice and Fire fandom, who sent me their pictures and got drawn into the family business. However, there are a few exceptions. Olenna Tyrell, called the Queen of Thorns, is actually Agnes Kraus, an East German actress who was called the Berlin Snout in her lifetime because of the grumpily eloquent but lovable character she portrayed.
Bisschen musst du doch die Leute kennen. Bist doch hier aufgewachsen. Hier ist Quatsch.
Her husband Luther is based on Martin Luther because his name sounds almost the same. In the story we learn that Luther rode his horse off a cliff while hunting. Probably the horse didn't want to deny its faith. Leo the Lazy is Dan Stevens from Downton Abbey. Maester Medwick is Andreas Pietschmann from the Netflix series Dark. Willis Tyrell is Kenneth Branagh, or Gilderoy Lockhart, or Hamlet. Dismera, which almost sounds like Cordelia, is based on Amy Beth McNulty, who plays Anne with an E.
Princess Cordelia was nowhere to be found.
Loras Tyrell is such an iconic character that I just used a random male shampoo model from the internet. May he forever be called L'Oreal from now on. Other people on the map include Garth Greenhand and his children. The only model acceptable for Garth Greenhand, the most prolific and fruitious gardener of history, is of course George R. Martin himself. John the Oak, who brought chivalry to Westeros, is also known for this quote.
What is best in life? To crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and to hear the lamentation of your women.
Harlon and Herndon, two twins that stayed forever young because they slept with the Woods Witch every month, are both Manuel Neuer, a German goalkeeper. Again, the rest of the models were people who are from the Song of Ice and Fire fandom. Some of them have their own podcasts, and they'll be linked in the description below the video. There are a few Easter eggs hidden in the depiction of the children of Garth Greenhand. Floris the Fox, who is the cleverest of Garth Greenhand's children, kept 3 husbands, each ignorant of the existence of the other 2. Her sons became the founders of House Florent, House Ball, and House Peak. Floris is wearing 3 rings with the sigils of those 3 houses. Shout out to Jinclear, who modeled for her. Rose of Red Lake is the founder of House Crane. According to legend, she was a skin changer who could transform into a crane at will. Some say this ability manifests in the women of House Crane from time to time. Note the cranes on her dress. Another Easter egg that is hidden here lies with this guy, Foss the Archer, founder of House Fossaway of Cider Hall. He was renowned for shooting apples of the head of any mate who took his fancy. If you follow the line of his arrow, he'll shoot it right across the map into the apple that is held by Rowan Goldtree. According to legend, Rowan was so bereft when her lover left her for a rich rival that she wrapped an apple in her golden hair and planted it upon a hill. From the apple grew a tree whose bark, leaves and fruit were yellow gold. A lot of the noble houses from the Reach trace their origin back to Garth Greenhand and his children. That's why they are on this map. Each house ever mentioned in the novels can be found here too, together with its sigil and some more Easter eggs. Let's take a look. In A Feast for Crows, we get the information that Brienne of Tarth gave a guy called Robin Potter a nasty scar on his head. This is one of the less subtle allusions to literature we find in George's writings, and of course, House Potter now features a sigil with the Deathly Hallows and looks a bit like Hogwarts, Whomping Willow and all. There's the Field of Fire, still smoking. House Cockshaw uses a chicken ladder to enter their castle. House Sawyer features a half-painted white fence and a bucket with paint. Read Mark Twain's Tom Sawyer again if that doesn't ring a bell. Speaking of ring, the Tower of Sauron is featured on The Ring because he's the Lord of the Rings. Also, the shape of the castle is rings. House Inchfield is shaped like a stabbed man who drowns in a lake. This is how Lucas Long Inchfield died in the story The Sworn Sword. Ivy Hall looks like an ivy leaf. Crop circles speak of either the creativity of the farmers of the Reach or of extraterrestrial visitors to Westeros. The sigil of House Yelshire features a battering ram. If you look at the castle closely, you'll see that its entrance door is smashed, also its walls are cracked and there's a broken tree where they practiced. Old Oak features an old oak. House Bushy is covered in bushes. Holy Hall looks a bit like a church and features a window that looks like a reversed cross, and it's also a place of druidic worship, so I assume the Gracefords are not quite clear on their religious affiliation. House Crane, well, it's anachronistic, but I wanted it to be a reference to Bates Motel and the Psycho Horror House. Remember that Norman Bates' first victim was called Marion Crane? Also note that there's a little tower that looks like a showerhead where Marion was killed. Greenshield's look is based on Morrowland, originally Lumaland, the place of the German children's book Jim Button and Luke the Engine Driver. It was written by Michael Ende, who also wrote The Neverending Story. Around the estuary of the Manda, there are beacons on towers. Some of them are burning, probably to warn the Reach that pirates from the Iron Islands are approaching. There is one, however, which is unlit. If you look closely, you can see some underwear lying on the floor next to it. This anachronism shows that whoever should light that beacon is occupied with something else at the moment. House Lothar is placed on a rock that looks like a dolphin, the animal which is also featured in their sigil. The rocks on the island close to Grimston look like a sleeping mermaid. House Grimston is also modelled after a church called Grimston, which is in Norfolk, UK. Apart from that, I took the liberty of giving Dustinbury to House Risley. The former seat of the Mendelys has to be given to someone, and House Risley sounds like some family that has risen on the social scale. Horn Hill sits on top of a hill that is shaped like a hunting horn. House Withers features a squirrel on its sigil. Behind their castle there's a bunch of nuts hidden. Hammerhall has a building on its northern side that looks like a hammer. There's a stone giant buried up to his waist. He's turning his back towards us and waiting to be awoken again. And whatever lurks in that cave, I don't want to know. There's a tourney tent on Ashford Meadow where the tourney of the Hedge Knight story takes place. It has the colors of House Harding. Sir Humphrey Harding participated in the tourney at Ashford Meadow in 209 AC and died of his wounds. Also, Ashford Castle is triangular, as described in that story. House Norwich sits on top of Ayers Rock, also called Uluru. It's on the northern ridge of the Red Mountains of Dorne. Uluru is forbidden ground, so beware where you tread. House Middlebury features 3 graves. 2 are empty. In the middle, someone is buried. Also, the middle of the roof has collapsed, so maybe we know why they needed those graves. The towers of Cider Hall are bottle-shaped to contain the cider. House Graves features a graveyard. Starpike is close to a peak that almost reaches the stars. The shape of Long Table is modeled after the Excel logo because you can make very long tables with it. House Hutchison features a sundial since their sigil is a hand pointing towards the sun. Sun House is all about the sun. It has a glass house, which is sometimes also called a sun house. The whole castle is built like a Mediterranean castle with lots of sunroofs to do sunbathing. Also note the sun over the entrance and the yellow parasol on one of the roofs. House Orme has 3 harps in their sigil, so I guess they have something to do with music. The band Le Orme was one of the major groups of the Italian progressive rock scene in the 1970s. Orme is Italian for footprints. House Orme's roof are 2 footprints, and the colors of the house resemble the colors in the flag of Italy. There's a fox hiding behind House Florent, probably Floris the fox. House Ambrose's name goes back to ambrosia, the ancient Greek word for immortality. It is the food or drink of the Greek gods, and the immortality symbol is featured on the roof of Ambrose Castle. House Greenhill features a lush green tree on a green hill in its sigil. Their castle, however, sits on top of a rocky bluish hill, and whatever trees there were, they cut them. Very environmentally aware folks, these Greenhill suckers. The mother house of Old Town is clearly recognizable because of its breast roof. The citadel is shaped like books because it's a place of learning after all. House Redwine rules the Arbor, a region of vineyards and wine. It looks like a wine barrel. Some house names are related to that, for example House Riesling, sounding like Riesling, and House Riesling has a leaning tower, better not drink and build. House Cups of Starfish Harbor is placed on a hill that looks like a starfish. The house itself also looks like a coffee cup. House Libber features a cat on their sigil. They also have a cat hidden in the hills. Somebody dismembered Ariel the mermaid at Mermaid's Palace. You can see her fishtail on the ground, and her hair is hanging out of a barrel. If you are a maths genius, you'll also see her pink algae bra. Stone Crab K looks like its name, a stony crab. We'll end our journey of the Reach in the capital castle, Highgarden. I dedicate this part of the map to Sir Joe Buckley, who wrote a fantastic book on the castles of Westeros. This part of the map is the only one that was hand-drawn on paper. First, I created a 3D model with the basic shapes. I rendered it out and then used it as a reference to get the perspective right. It's colorized in Photoshop. Highgarden has all the details we get from the books. It is located on a broad, verdant hill overlooking the Mander. The castle is surrounded by 3 rings of white stone whose granulated curtain walls increase in height. Between the outer and middle walls, is a famous Briar Labyrinth, which serves to entertain as well as slow invaders. You can actually try to find your way through it. The oldest towers are squat and square and date from the Age of Heroes. Newer towers are tall and slender, round fortifications dating from after the coming of the Andals. The Castle Sept, which has rows of stained glass windows honoring Garth Greenhand and the Seven, is matched only by the Great Sept of Baelor and the Starry Sept. The castle's Godswood contains 3 weirwoods, known as the Three Singers. The palatial keep is decorated with statues and colonnades. Also within Highgarden's walls are groves, fountains and courtyards. The castle's structures are covered in ivy, grapes and climbing roses. This concludes my journey across the Reach. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you like the artwork, you can get it as a digital file from my website. You'll also find options and links to get printed copies there. Stay strong, grow strong, reach out to me.